Okay, this is a fundamental question that you should be asking when you do a startup in MedTech. You can do a startup on many things. My experience over 30 years has led me to one conclusion. The idea is really important. When I think about the idea, I think about the size of the idea. If you've got an idea that can treat a grand total of 1,000 patients across the world, that's a great idea. It's a noble idea, but it's not going to be a business. And if your idea can't be a big business, you're never going to attract the kind of money needed to be able to support the building of that business. So again, if you've got an idea and it's a small idea, this probably is not for you. What we need here are big ideas. And if you can, original ideas, of course, because you're going to be able to need to patent them and to get intellectual property around them. But the fundamental thing that I've learned over these years is that unless it's a big idea, you can get early seed money really easily. You can get fools, families and friends to give you some money to get your really cool idea going. But what you'll never be able to do is get to the hundreds of millions of investment, because at some point you have to put a plan together of what does it look like on the returns? What does it look like 10 years into sales? And if you can't be hitting the hundreds of millions, it's going to be really hard to convince venture capitalists, private equity firms, boutique firms to part with tens of millions or hundreds of millions to back your idea if the maths just doesn't add up. Really think about, is my idea big enough? And we'll talk a little bit about the business plan in a bit, and you'll be able to sort of analyze that. But go for the big ideas. And that's one half of it. The second half of why do I go for the big ideas is you can only do so many startups in your life because you only have so much life and you only have so much time to do the startups in life. So don't spend your time, because it'll be the same amount of time whether it's a small idea or a big idea. Don't waste your time on the small things and the small ideas. It will be a struggle from day one. I like to say go big or go home. And I really am a believer that the best ideas, the most bankable ideas, are those big ideas, the ones that really change healthcare. I'm not talking about taking a syringe and making a blue syringe. That's really noble and great, but that's not going to change the dial in healthcare. And it's not going to change huge amounts of the economics, or it's not going to change patient pathways. And if you can't have that massively compelling idea that's big and affects huge portions of the population, you're going to struggle to raise money and convince people that this is an amazing, great idea. I'll give you an example. Over my career, I think, once every couple of months, I get sent to me ideas. And the usual one is a new speculum. And the usual one is a water speculum. So we're going to get rid of the metal speculum and we're going to use water, or we're going to use ice. Those ideas as well, they're great, but they're not bankable businesses. They don't change the game enough. So the idea's got to be big, and it's got to be a game changer if you really want to attract the kind of finance that's going to make your startup successful. And remember, the majority of startups fail. A huge part of startups fail. Some of them don't even get out of the first year. Don't be one of them. Instead, sit down and say, is my idea big enough? Is it innovative enough? Am I going to be willing to spend the next 5, 8, 10 years of my life, this chunk of my life, the prime of my life, to do this? Is that idea worth it? And if you can't really stand behind that and say, yes, then no one else should stand behind it either. So my advice is, make sure that you've got the big idea. Okay, let's continue.